Hello, Emmanuel. We've talked a few times, but I want to just for the sake of the viewers to just tell them who you are and what you do.
Okay, for the viewers out there, my name is Emmanuel Chidozie. I am a doctoral researcher at Leuven Catholic University, Belgium, and I've been working with the victims of Boko Haram in Edo State, Nigeria. So I've been working on areas related to trauma, related to women and children back home in Nigeria. Then, in addition, I'm also a member of the Leuven Peace Movement.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So essentially, like we've talked over time, your research is very centered on the Boko Haram phenomenon currently, and it's been going on for years. That's taken over Nigeria. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, this is the reviews. We are a non-judgmental platform where we discuss different things. Now, today we're talking Boko Haram and the Nigerian phenomenon. Now, those of you, Nigeria is the most populous country in West Africa and the third populous country in the world after the US and India. Now, Nigeria is in the west of Africa. And recently, there's been, well, not very recently, in the last few years, there's been very much likened to ISIS in Syria and the Taliban in Afghanistan. There's been a terror group called Boko Haram. And it initially started from the northeast of Nigeria and is gradually spread to the whole country. So the country pretty much is terrorized by this group. And Emmanuel, your research is very much on this. Am I correct?
Yeah, sure, it is.
Now, if you can tell me, it's a very touchy subject. Can you just tell us what led you into this field of research?
Okay, actually, what led me to this field of research was basically in 2014 when I gained a master's, admission to do a master's program in social and cultural anthropology in the Catholic University of Leuven. So I could still recall that on a certain day in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, Boko Haram attacked the ancient town of Chibok. They carted away women and children. And then I saw the harvest of miseries on the faces of women and on the faces of people from Chibok. And I asked myself, what can I do to stop this violence? How can I be of help to our country or to our country, Nigeria? What can I do differently? So this kind of initial longing in my heart led me to the studies of Boko Haram. I wanted to know, what is Boko Haram all about? Why is it that Boko Haram is concentrated in the northeast of Nigeria? And why is it that they want to establish an Islamic caliphate in Nigeria? Why are they against the government of Nigeria? And also, I wanted to understand how the women and the children, and of course, other young people, of course, older men that have been kidnapped by Boko Haram, some have lost their lives, some have been terrorized, some have been tortured. There has been an erosion of lives and property, the breaking of limbs and lives. What can I do differently? So these sorts of questions propelled me to the research on the victims of Boko Haram. You know, I cannot work with Boko Haram people, but it was on the victims per se of Boko Haram, the survivors of Boko Haram.
Now, this is just, again, for clarification, this was the issue of the Chibok girls. And at some time there was a hashtag, bring back our girls. Yes, so this is, you're talking about specifically about the bring back our girls in 2014, where even President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama were very involved, and it's very widespread. And even till now, you still have, I think it was from there the Leah Shaibu movement came in. The Leah Shaibu, and you have who keeps, who is on this. It's really interesting. Like I say, it's also pretty sensitive, but we've seen over the years it has really grown. Now, what are your thoughts on the defection of Boko Haram? Because we're seeing a massive defection. So, what are your thoughts? And first of all, can you explain to us the Boko Haram defection for clarity?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Actually, let me begin by saying that Boko Haram, the word Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. And Boko Haram is a statement against Westernization, against the Western way of living. So, how come that there is a lot of defection? Many people have said, okay, that the Nigerian military are closing hard on Boko Haram, so they have suddenly changed their mind in order to be reintegrated to the society. But as security analysts, we do not think that is the case now. Now, in the Sahel region, or Nigeria specifically, we have the Boko Haram. They are very active. We also have the ISWAP that is allied to the ISIS. They're also very active. You could recall that sometime in May, the leader of the Boko Haram, Shekau, was killed. So when Shekau was killed, a different dynamics emerged. Several of the leaders of Boko Haram, several commanders of Boko Haram had to surrender themselves. Some that do not want to surrender, they feel humiliated. They felt it is better for them to ask the Nigerian populace or through the military that they have repented of their evil deeds or for killing innocent people. So they see it as some sort of a soft landing. And also, there is also another school of thought that likens it to the Afghanistan way, the Taliban way. They want to spy on the Nigerian security apparatus, and also they also want to come back to the community, gather some information, and then go back and also spread this information across their allies. So there are several schools of thought. One is that the military is enclosing seriously on them, and they do not have an alternative route of an escape. The second school of thought thinks that, okay, instead of being humiliated by the ISWAP, it is better for them to turn themselves into the military. So there is this competitive narrative. But amidst this, let us take our mind, let us step back a little bit. Let us look at the case of the Taliban. It took 10 days for Afghanistan to fall. You'll agree with me. How did it happen? Some of the militants just joined the Taliban and the Afghanistan military. Immediately the Americans left, they went back to the Taliban, put on their normal shell, and still continue this stuff. So I think the Nigerian security system needs to be very, very well. Yeah, it is a cause for celebration that they want to surrender. But then within this surrendering, they should also look in depth whether this surrendering is born out of true repentance or a decoy or a ploy. Because the more we see, the less we know. The Nigerian military needs to be wary of this massive surrendering of the so-called repentant Boko Haram.
Yeah, there's a lot of talks about the repentant Boko Haram and even the rehabilitation of these repentant Boko Haram. And so what you're saying is that this defection is a threat really to Nigerian security.
Sure, it is a threat. It is a threat because it's a threat because let's look at it at this. Let's look at it. I've been working with the victims of Boko Haram in Nigeria at the Ubua Center. These people, they have lost their wives, they have lost their mothers, they have lost their loved ones, and they live in abject poverty. I mean, they are soaked in the waters of poverty. And all of a sudden, their killers come out, carry a signboard and say, I have repented. And then you drive them back into the society. If you ask me my personal opinion, I think these so-called repentant Boko Haram should be prosecuted. And when they are prosecuted, then we can say, okay, the president has decided to grant them amnesty. But let it be that they have passed through the criminal justice system in Nigeria, because that will offer some sort of solace to the people that have been victims or that have survived Boko Haram. That is my thoughts on it.
Yeah, so instead of giving them a free pass to reintegration under the guise of rehabilitation, they should at least, that's fine. You're not against them rehabilitating or being reintegrated within society, but you are saying at least go through the pay for your crimes. There are consequences for actions. Pay for this. But there are also other schools of thought that believe that a lot of these Boko Haram members are not even Nigerians. Do not forget Nigeria. If you look in the African map, Nigeria shares a border with Niger Republic and Chad. And what you're saying is a lot of these Boko Haram members or militants are actually not Nigerians. And so I completely get where you're coming from in terms of them having to pay for their crimes and going through the criminal justice system. But also when it comes to rehabilitation and reintegration, we might rehabilitate them through the criminal justice system, but reintegration, we could argue that, well, it's not even their country in the first place. So what are we reintegrating? We should simply make them pay for their crimes and send them back to where they came from.
Okay, actually, let me just state here, you're right. Some members of the Boko Haram or the ISWAP, as the case may be, some of them are foreign fighters, because many of the members, many of the people that constitute the Boko Haram, they are from the Kanuri ethnic stock. They are from the Kanuri, and the Kanuri is located in northeast of Nigeria. Of course, you have some in in Chad, in Niger, and also in Cameroon. Because the colonization divided these people into different countries.
Basically, it was borderless, and with colonization and the whole split and the divide and kill of the British, the Portuguese, the Belgians, and Germans, and and other colonizers. They created borders that were that were once in towns or countries that were or regions that were once borderless, and so which therefore means that a lot of these people, even though they're from the same tribe and ethnic groups, then happen to be now come from different countries from colonization and the creation of these borders. Okay, that's quite interesting. And so essentially, it is a risk really to stay where we're facing them.
First of all, when we talk of rehabilitation and reintegration, these are related concepts. But of course, there are a huge difference between them. One, there is no clear-cut dichotomy. There's no clear-cut dichotomy, but there may be some forms of little differences. When we want to rehabilitate, we have Operation Safe Corridor, but to what extent are they really rehabilitating the victims of Boko Haram? That's another question you ask. And we also have the Bishop Kuka Center in Abuja that I've also talked about steps to rehabilitate. First of all, you disarm them, you demobilize them, you give them a sense of safety. But then there are several issues there. How do you just imagine that somebody killed your loved one and all of a sudden the person is coming back to live in that community. So how will the community now look at the person? So a lot of, when we talk of reintegration, we have to also involve the religious leaders, of course, the political leaders, the local government leaders, and leaders in all spheres of governance or community have to come together to see how they can change the narratives and how they can also relate to the idea of reintegration and rehabilitation of this. I'm not against the repentance. I'm not against the sincere repentance Boko Haram, but I'm against those that are insincere because they feel humiliated or they are looking for soft land. These are the people I am against. So that's why yeah.
But the issue with that is how do you differentiate the sincere and the insincere? Because intention is something that we can't see, But I think from what I also gathered again is in terms of, like you said, in terms of reintegration and rehabilitation, they have to pass through the right channels. And from my understanding and from what you've explained, that's not what's happening. There is the, you know, we're waking up and seeing people saying, "Oh, we're being rehabilitated." They've been rehabilitated, and nothing has been heard of them. And you know, okay. Now I'm going to go to another question. Now, the Nigerian army was once known as one of the best land
in Africa, yeah,
fighters in the world. Now, it then begs the question why Boko Haram has remained undefeated. And of course, we've heard stories of, they've said Boko Haram has been technically defeated. Boko Haram has been financially defeated, and all these different forms of defeats against Boko Haram, but still they keep resurfacing. We keep hearing the stories of Boko Haram. And so essentially, the Nigerian army has not really been able to defeat Boko Haram, really, in spite of the different claims in the last few years from the different areas of government. So what do you think is responsible for this?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Actually, I want us to imagine or reimagine Boko Haram in terms of a spectrum, in terms of a rainbow that has variety of colors. Now, you may remove one of the colors, but yet other colors are remaining. So coming specifically to the Boko Haram crisis, the government of Nigeria or our military is dealing with a symptom. They are not looking at the root causes, or what I call the gravitation or the theme of the Boko Haram crisis. First of all, the government has not, how many sponsors of Boko Haram have been arrested and prosecuted? That is the very first question we'll look at. And second, how come that young people, youngsters, are endeared to Boko Haram? We have, as an anthropologist, I look at the rising case of poverty, hunger, and illiteracy. And also, when we look at it at a religious perspective, we see how religion is being instrumentalized or politicized. So these are ingredients that the military cannot. It's not within the portfolio of the military to delve into issues like this. You may conquer this set of Boko Haram on the field, but have you conquered their hearts and minds? Have you won over their hearts and minds? So what is the relevance of conquering people on the field when in the next minute, boom, these guys have also recruited several young boys and girls as Boko Haram fighters? In one of my research, or one of my research participants did tell me that they paid them just as little as 10,000 naira to be a suicide bomber. So you can understand why the issue of Boko Haram is not going to end, because the government is here to address the root cause, and also they do not have the political will to address the root cause of Boko Haram. First of all, look at Boko Haram from its socio-political angle, the religious perspective, and of course the financiers of Boko Haram. That, as it were, has not been done. So the issue of Boko Haram will continue to fester across until the Nigerian government do the right thing, going to the gravity, to the source of Boko Haram, to do that which is right.
Now, anybody listening, sorry, anybody listening would say, well, okay, it is true that they would agree with you that it is true that it is not part of the military portfolio to look at the symptoms or deal with the symptoms, and rather than the roots, or deal with the roots rather than the symptoms. But then it is their duty to protect the nation. Now, why is it that we still hear Boko Haram bombings and killings, you know? And so why do we keep? I mean, if you look back some years ago when the American went into Afghanistan and killed Osama bin Laden, it was pretty much one night operation. I mean, obviously it's been going on for years, but they went in, did what they had to do, and what is stopping the Nigerian army from doing that? So, irrespective of the root cause, again, which again is for the government, and it's not a one-man thing; it's a collective effort on dealing with the root cause of Boko Haram. But then What about the man force, if you like? Okay, what is happening with actually just thinking that using military force to get rid of these people, take over Sambisa Forest. Now, for those who don't know, Sambisa Forest is what I would call the official residence or official headquarters of Boko Haram. And so, what is stopping the Nigerian military from actually going there and breaking the whole place and taking over to using brute force essentially to take over and stop or put a stop to this Boko Haram menace?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Now, from some of the soldiers I've talked with, they say when they use brute force to delve into Sambisa, that they will kill the guilty people and the innocent people. That is their argument. And they say that the Sambisa is a vast expanse of land, and some of them say they do not have the necessary ammunition or military, I think they call it kinetic and non-kinetic person. The question that one will ask is, do they have the willpower? Now let me take your attention to the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOP. The government was able to track Nnamdi Kanu. I don't know the country, some say in Russia, some say in Kenya. Kenya. They were able to track Nnamdi and bring him back to the country. So many people also puzzle, how come that Sambisa Forest is within
right with us? Yeah.
And they are unable to track down these terrorists. Then the answer becomes obvious. The late General Abacha will say, when terrorism lasts more than 48 hours, it is either it has the tacit support of the government in power. And recently, a retired naval officer once said that it seems, or it appears, the body language shows that this government do not have the willpower to tackle headlong the crisis of terrorism in Nigeria.
Is it the willpower? And the military. Is it the willpower or
the political will?
Well, and so essentially, they are for Boko Haram, really. If you say they don't have the willpower, which means they don't have the desire to actually even fight them in the first place.
Well, the body language shows that they may not have the desire to eradicate Boko Haram or minimize it to a very large extent, because we hear the media talking about bandits, kidnappers, and then they cannot even declare these people terrorists. You see a certain organization even threatening a governor of a certain state, nothing is done. So it now seems, the rise of Boko Haram in Nigeria, and also I forget to mention it, the inability of the Nigerian military to defeat Boko Haram is also this dichotomy in the country, the North and the South. The dichotomy between the North and the South also plays out. And if you like, you can also be a dichotomy between the Christians and the Muslims. You also remember during the time of Jonathan, the interaction that was going on between General Jirika and also the governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai. The action, you are a terrorist, you are a terrorist. So you see this kind of this thing. They will tell you that a fight against Boko Haram is a fight against a certain section of the country. So you see all this kind of narratives, and the military themselves are also a product of the society that is also polarized along the North and the South and the Christian-Muslim divide. But of course, the pervading, there is one button or one thread that holds all of them together. It is what I term the violences of corruption. The violences of corruption tends to hold this knob together, the knob of the North-South, the Christian and Muslim, the Christian versus Christian dichotomy. The thread of corruption now holds these violences together and put them into action. That's why it is either the government do not have the willpower, or the crisis of ethnicity, religious cleavage is also plays into it. And this seems very sympathetic. So that is the crisis of the Nigerian state.
Well, anybody listening would say it's not a crisis. It's clearly there's clearly an agenda. if the government who were, well, supposedly voted in a supposedly, you can say, I use the term supposedly democratic nation, is somehow aiding and abetting terrorism and basically turning a blind eye to the devastation caused by Boko Haram, it is safe to say that they are clearly on the side of Boko Haram. And if they haven't, like you said, the body language has not shown any willpower, then it would seem like they are on the side of Boko Haram for whatever reasons, for whatever gains. And now we are yet to find out what exactly is going on. Now, this is quite interesting, but I want to take us away from home a little bit. Let's go away over to Asia, where we have a similar situation with the Taliban in Afghanistan. So what are your thoughts on the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan?
Oh, thank you very much for that question. Actually, you agree with me that we live in a global community. Now, the takeover of Taliban is a very interesting dimension. It took the Taliban. Taliban had about, let's say, 77,000 fighters, whereas the Afghanistan government had about 333,000 forces or thereabouts. So the point here is that the government forces was well equipped in terms of military equipment than the Taliban. But
we can't say for sure if they were well equipped. We know that they are outnumbered. They are outnumbered from the numbers of the figures you've just given. They clearly outnumbered the Taliban. But then,
no, in terms of what I mean by well equipped was that you recall the Americans had trained the government forces for several years, one, and secondly, the American and also the Western power did give a lot of military equipment to the government soldiers. So in terms of, I'm seeing equipped from those two perspectives of being well trained and in terms of military power. But then something was amiss, and that is the heart and the mind. Why I talk about the heart and the mind and also the social cultural, sorry that I'm coming in from an anthropological perspective.
No, it's your area, so we want to hear it.
Yeah, look at this. What the American government was missing was the social cultural realities. Most of the fighters have their sympathies with the Taliban. So immediately America announced that the Americans and their Western allies, they announced they are pulling out of Afghanistan. The natural thing was, oh, the shell I dropped, my normal self, human being is filled, or human being is characterized with by different dimensions. They just took on the original Talibanism and just put it on. So you see that there are some cities very, very interesting. The Taliban come, the women and children sing songs and welcome them, and the soldiers just pull off their uniform, enter into the crowd, or just go over, desert the military, and just join the Taliban. So it has several implications for us. One of the implications is that several schools of thought say, okay, now that the Taliban is in power, they want to do things differently. They do not want to lose power again. Another school of thought said, no, that it is also possible that ISIS, that we have seen, recently an ISIS-backed organization bumped near, or they claim responsibility to have undertaking that suicide bombing. So some people say that now that the Taliban is in charge of power, that it will be a fertile ground for several terrorist organizations to come into power. And in relation to Nigeria, and of course across the globe, is it the case that this will also embolden the terrorist organization? This also comes to mind. Another thing again that one will also look at is the Taliban. It's always about the formation of an Islamic caliphate. And when you look at all these terrorist organizations, the homegrown Boko Haram, the Al-Shabaab in Somalia, the ISIS, they have one objective: the formation of a caliphate or a return to the so-called Islamic days. So they share certain things in common. In Nigeria, we had this idea of the introduction of the Sharia, So you see that they have a goal, one similarity or one thread runs through the formation. They're against democracy, the Western form of democracy. They want an Islamic state. They want a caliphate. So this has a lot of implications for the global community, and of course, Nigeria in particular. A serious attention also needs to be paid to Afghanistan, so it doesn't become a safe haven for the fruition or for the cultivation of terrorism across the world.
That is quite true. But again, like you pointed out, we also kind of see a similar pattern with the Boko Haram in Nigeria. Let's just hope that it does not go as far as the takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban. Let's hope that we don't get a situation where we'll have to deal with Boko Haram taking over Nigeria. Now that brings us to the last point. Now, it's been a good conversation. Now, you've done all this research and all this work, and within the Boko Haram and especially with women and children who have been displaced and who have been affected by this Boko Haram menace. Now, what are your final thoughts, and what do you think is the way forward? What will be your recommendations?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I have been working on a concept that I call Indomie anthropology, or anthropology of Indomie. Indomie, in the West, we call it noodles. It's an instant food. Now, at the International Christian Center where I was working, I came across an Indomie kitchen or a noodle kitchen. It's just a kind of a provisional arrangement. It's a kitchen. So the children, the youngsters I met, they love Indomie. They love to eat the instant noodles. So what I did, I noticed that the way they already opened the instant noodle also drew my attention to the idea of Indomie generation. They want things done quickly, and they want things done in a very fast manner. And then I also observed during the course of my research, or while I was at the center, the children they are so happy eating these noodles. They are it's like a safe space for them. They tell stories. So while they are putting the noodles in the pot, putting water, pepper, and salt, as they are stirring the pot, they sing songs, they kind of play. And I came to the idea, when I asked the children, they said once they eat that noodles that they are very happy, that while they were in Bornu, that they didn't have the leisure or the safety or the safe spaces to cook these noodles. They say once they eat this noodle, they feel so happy. It makes them to forget about their traumatic experiences. So that idea, as somebody working on trauma cases, that also struck an idea on me. And I started thinking, okay, we could have a way of changing the narratives of trauma for youngsters through what I call the Indomie anthropology, through the provision of Indomie. The Indomie kitchen can constitute a safe space through which, amidst the preparing or the making of this Indomie, it could be a way of forgetting this traumatic experience. So that has been the concept I've been working for the past 4 or 5 years. And by the grace of God, I will be presenting a paper to the anthropological conference this year in Mexico to further to contribute to the studies on trauma studies, and also specifically Indomie anthropology, to see how we can export the Indomie ideology as a way of de-radicalizing, or as a way of confronting trauma cases across the world, or in Nigeria in particular. Thank you very much.
Emmanuel Chidozie. That's been a very wonderful insight on the different aspects of the Boko Haram and the Nigerian phenomenon. Again, thank you very much for joining us on Reviews. If you're joining us for the first time, please do not forget to subscribe, to share, and to like.